I'd like to call to order the board meeting for Monday, November 12th. If everyone would stand to recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening. We've got all board members present except for Ryan Osmus. And we need an adoption of the agenda. We do have an updated agenda in our green packets and includes the supplemental personnel report, which also is in our green packet.
Make a motion to approve the agenda.
A second. Motion by Tracy and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0. Okay, Pamela, did you have a chance to look over the bills?
Yes, I did, and everything was as it needed to be.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion then?
I move that we accept this and pay the bills.
Okay.
A second.
Motion by Pamela, second by Jamie. All in favor? 6-0. We have no special presentations tonight. We are ready then for the Stuco reports. First up, we have Alejandro Rangel from Dodge City High School.
Hello, Board and Dr. Dirksen. It's been a quick minute since I last spoke to you in September, and it has been a very eventful couple of weeks. Early in October, we hosted the Hatchet game, and we are happy to say that the Hatchet is back home where it belongs. I would like to thank the administration and the band directors at DCHS for allowing the band to sit with the student section during the game. It was a worthwhile endeavor and greatly enhanced my experience and that of others that day. Last week was Health, Occupation, Students of America Week, and each day had a focus consisting of Nurse Appreciation on Monday, Teacher Appreciation on Tuesday, Health Habit Wednesday, and the Blood Drive on Thursday, which they hosted alongside the National Honor Society. We had 90 usable units donated, which easily surpassed that of Garden City, which they had 50 units donated, allowing us to beat the Buffs once more. SAD had to postpone their color run this Friday due to less than favorable conditions last week. It's open to any student and the public. The cost is $2 to register, and all of the proceeds go towards buying coats for those in need in our community. If you or anyone you know is interested, sign-up sheets are located in the main office at the high school. As for Stuco business, we are in the process of working out the minor details of our canned food drive slated for the month of December, and a big project yet to be determined to finish up our first semester. Once again, I'm excited for what is yet to come this school year, and will continue to improve Dodge City High School for students and for faculty. Are there any questions you have or anything you'd like for me to clear up?
I don't think so.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
All right, next up we have Andrea Yates from Comanche Middle School.
Good evening. I'm here to give a plot of what is going on at Comanche. Sorry, my hair is a mess. I just got out of basketball practice.
Look great.
Speaking of basketball, our teams are working hard as well as our wrestlers. We haven't won anything, but it's okay. I don't know. We're planning a holiday-themed dance to be held on December 7th. The food drive was a successful last month. Was a success last month. The team that brought the most food will get the dance for free. The food was donated to the Manna House. In October, we took 2 surveys. One survey was to ask us what we wanted for lunch, and the other survey asked us to identify the strengths and weaknesses of our school. Daniel Acton, the student minister at the First Christian Church, spoke to us about being a leader or follower. He will speak to us each month about various topics. Our Red Wheel fundraiser is ending today. Today. We will be handing out the sold items right before Thanksgiving on November 19th. We had our Veterans Day Assembly on Friday. We learned about the history of the Pledge of Allegiance and honored our veterans. Thank you.
Very nice.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrea.
Very nice.
And from Dodge City Middle School, we have Grace Pelton.
Good evening. I'm Grace Pelton, the STUCO president. The Student Council hosted their first dance on November 2nd. It was an 80s themed dance. We had about 80 students attend the dance. We hope all of our dances this year are a big success. The first parent-teacher conference of the year was a success. We had a 93% attendance rate. STEM night happened on November 1st. Students participated in stations with a variety of hands-on math activities. It was great to have students participate in academics activities without any pressure, where they can see math in action. Students in the DCMS Gifted program traveled to the Mid-America Museum in Liberal for the Aerospace Career Fair. They toured the museum and got to check out many aircrafts on display. They even had the opportunity to go in some of the planes. The students also talked to professionals in this career involving flight. NJHS went to Hodgman County for a class leadership session. We exchanged ideas with Cimarron Middle School and Hodgman County Middle School about new ways to improve our school and ways to build others up in our schools. On Saturday, November 3rd, DCMS hosted the middle school band, middle school orchestra, and middle school jazz and the high school jazz band honor festival. About 180 musicians participated in this festival. It was a great opportunity to show off our new facilities. We also recently had a blood drive assembly. We learned that every 2 seconds someone needs a blood donation, and you can save 3 lives with 1 pint of blood. The students are trying to get as many people as possible to donate blood at the end of the month. Thank you.
Thanks, Grace.
Good job, Grace.
Very good. All right, next up, we have recognition of visitors. Persons may present ideas or concerns regarding USD 443 schools. No action will be taken by the board at this meeting. Personalities and behavior of employees are not to be presented during this period, but are to be reported to the employee's immediate supervisor. The president shall determine the amount of time to be spent for citizen participation. If you'd like to address the board, please approach the podium at this time. Seeing nobody, we'll move right along. Next up, we have the consent agenda. That includes the approval of personnel, including the supplemental personnel report, approval of minutes for the October 22nd regular Board of Education meeting, and then the special Board of Education meeting with city, county, and college and us. Approval of, did you?
There's a correction that needs to be made on that. I was not listed as attendance at that meeting, and I was. I did attend the meeting.
Oh, okay. I didn't notice that. We can make that change, though. Approval of temporary emergency impact aid for displaced students grant award. Approval of Kansas Masonic Literacy Center grant application for Central. Approval of Pets in the Classroom grant award for Sewell. Approval of No Kid Hungry Share Our Strength Kansas Breakfast 2019 grant award for the Nutrition Department. Approval of Community Foundation of Southwest Kansas Scroggins grant application for Rialto Way. Approval of donations to Central Archery Program. Approval of Community Foundation of Southwest Kansas Youth Mental Health First Aid for the high school. Update on Head Start Information Memorandum, integrating approaches that prioritize and enhance father engagement.
I just want to clarify, that was on page 7, that your name was not listed as being present. You weren't listed as absent, but somehow your name got left off there, and you were present. So
Yes, I
we
made
need
a
to make
motion
sure
to
we make that correction. So you got that? Okay. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the consent agenda
With the change?
with the
For the
changes,
update?
yes.
I'll second that.
All right, a motion by Tammy and a second by Pamela. All in favor? 6-0. Okay, we're ready for new business. First up, curriculum and instruction.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Dirksen. I'm going to shift a little bit and go over there and take control of the computer, and I'm going to walk you through thought exchange that you'll see from the administrative end, the dashboard. You do have in front of you a brief, high-level executive summary. It looks like this in your packet. I'll hit some of these key pieces as we go through, but my goal tonight is to be able to give you the preliminary findings from the survey, as well as what are the next steps and how this will become a living document as we start to develop our strategic action plan. So I'm going to walk over here.
We have a microphone capabilities over here. Be able to pull mine over or something, so just so it can be heard on the TV. That'd be close.
Thank you.
Karen shouldn't do anything.
I think we're good.
Pretty awesome. Good job, Karen.
Is there anything she can't?
Thank you. You guys hear me? Is that good?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so what you're seeing is the administrative back end of the survey, and at the top, you'll see there's one survey in green and one in blue. The top one is the community survey, so I'm going to walk you through that, but the actual executive summary that you have will combine both feedback. So just kind of for your information, we did put the survey out to the community as a whole, and there were some students that participated in that survey, but then we closed that one and opened it up specifically to middle school and high school students, which there were I think there's 1,700 individuals that participated from the students. So I want to show you a little bit of what this looks like and how this survey is quite a bit different, the format. Okay, so in this, and it will show it on top of your executive summary, there were 710 participants in the community. So those are unique individuals in our community that participated in the survey who shared 678 thoughts. So that means some people went in there, and I know some of them were me trying to get in and learn the system, so I probably had multiple ones in there. And then the ratings over here, the 16,800. If you those that participated in the survey, you know that you went in and you rated each thought on a 1 to 5 star rating, with 5 being the highest. So this counted up how many ratings were actually completed. I think to get a better understanding of how this works, I want to show you the thought graph, because in a typical survey, it's very linear. There's a standard static question, and then somebody responds either multiple choice or you could put some short answer feedback. But how this survey works is that it was one open-ended question. Let's see.
Takes it a while to build up, yeah.
Let me try that again. I apologize. It's small on here, and I don't know why it's doing that. What you're seeing, and it's hard to see on there, but those dots, right? I don't know, Ray, if you know how to.
That plus sign doesn't enlarge it?
Yeah, that's just speeding it up.
Oh, that's the speed. What about the settings button right above it?
Can you enlarge that? You want to enlarge that?
I don't know if I can.
This is good, though, because I've asked Dr. Springston to present this at Southwest Plains, too, so we'll know better the second time we present it. Help us.
Yes.
We're practicing.
It was working earlier when I practiced.
It's about the best.
Okay, we're going to have to, I know it's hard to see, but those dots represent, and I know it's very hard to see, so it's not going to show it, but each one of those dots and those lines as it's growing, you can see that yellow mass where it's a web. So the darker dots represent, it represents an individual. And then what you see in the little purple dots in there will be the thoughts that are exchanged. And so what you'll see as this thing builds is how each person connects with multiple thoughts. And it shows, that interconnectivity. So one person could respond to the question, post a statement or a response, and then other people could add to it. And so that's what makes this survey stronger, I believe, than traditional surveys, as well as quite a bit more dynamic. It lets our community really drill down and drive the discussion without us driving it. And so what we'll find through this data is it's going to be very authentic. It's what our community is saying right now, and it gives us a good starting point. So again, I apologize, that's not. What? That's okay, I'll move on. Okay, under the demographic page, I wanted to point a couple things out. I'm going to ask Carrie to jump in as well. So if you look at this, 92% of our respondents responded in the English version of the survey, 8% or 54 in the Spanish version. So originally, Carrie and I looked at it and we thought, well, that just seems low, but we don't really have a targeted benchmark. What's that number? What is a good number? The individuals at Thought Exchange who have done this across the country, and even the districts that look like us that we used as comps when I called for references, had very similar demographics to our district. What Thought Exchange said is 8% is really pretty high. They normally see 2 to 3%. Now, I don't know the 8%. Again, I'm going to go back to, is 8% good? Probably. It's hard for me to quantify it. I mean, I can look at 8% and say it's low. This is a benchmark survey. So as we give surveys in the future, obviously we're going to want that number to go up significantly over time. So we're making sure to engage or at least provide the opportunity and reduce barriers for all of our community to engage with the district. So in this demographic survey, or demographics as well, let's see. In the survey, it's Thought Exchange sets up, it took all the responses, looked for keywords, and then put them into groups. And this will look more familiar if you look at a bar chart, and you could see how they ranked it and what we're familiar with kind of a standard typical bar chart, with student wellness being the highest here. If we go to the theme tiles, it just gives you another visual representation. What's important in this data to look at is this is for all of our exchanges. So this would be all our demographics. If I go down and you'll look, these colored themes will change. If I go to community members, one of their top themes is budget and funding, followed by student wellness. So if you keep an eye on the green, so like the budget and funding's top for the community, but if you go to parents of high school students, it's quite a bit smaller. I mean, it's not a significant area or a response from those people who identified themselves as either high school staff or parents of high school students. And then same thing with middle school, doesn't even show up as one of their items. So the reason I show this is even though we go to all, it still was a dominant theme across all respondents, but in each one of the subcategories, it might not have rated as high. Why this is important is we start to dig down into this data further when we get into our strategic action plan groups. We want to look at different sectors of our community, how they rate it. Because, for example, a community, they would have ranked that if they didn't have any students in our district. So how is that sector of our population really feeling on these different areas, whether it's curriculum or student wellness or the school culture? So we really want to be able to target our audience and then make sure that our responses are across the spectrum. So when we go into, so let's say we'll pick curriculum. No, I'll go student wellness. So if you click that tile, what you're going to find is you're going to see that in that theme under student wellness, there's 66 thoughts that came up in this theme. In other words, those are 66 individual conversations that were provided. If you see in here, one thing that we got to look at when we dig down is it ranks it by the Likert scale. So 4.8 would be the top. We have to weigh into that. There are only 5 individuals provided that score. So it's kind of like if you go into Yelp and you're looking at restaurant reviews and there's 1 or 2 versus 30, it's the same concept. We want to see a higher number over here on the right of individuals, but then also correlate to a higher number of the ratings. So if I go down, these that say translated by Google, those would be people that took the Spanish version where Google Translate converted it into English. And so we kind of get an idea there. Let's see. So this one here, for example, focus on the child and their success, not on what they don't have. That's an example where it's a 4.5 average rating, and there were 42 people. So that's a pretty strong indicator that this is something that our respondents are saying is of high importance. So we would definitely look at that and weight it a little bit higher. In this as well, it allows us to get the top thoughts. And so those would be the thoughts that have come across. And remember, this would be for all ratings. We can break it down, obviously, by demographics of our participants. But what is our school doing well, and what can we focus on to improve? That was the sole question that was asked in the survey. And then everything else generated out of conversation from our community. So you can see, and you'll see in here, top thoughts give us an idea across all those demographics, what rose to the top in each one of them. Whether it be parents of elementary, middle school, it could have been students or community. You'll see themes in here of physical safety, a lot of stuff. And this data, and what I'll say is, the data gives us a starting point on the questions to ask next. I want to be careful that we don't take what you see right now out of context. So it's going to give us some groupings. Our next step with this will be to work with Thought Exchange and actually develop our own tags and keywords. So if we develop, for example, the face of Dodge City as our strategic action plan, under F for financial, we'll want to go in and develop a list of tags or keywords that will identify. Maybe it's budget or bond or whatever. We'll put those in there and be able to regroup our responses even further. And so this has given us an area or an idea in the financial, academic, climate, and employee overarching goals for strategic action plan, but then it will hone us in on a little more detail. Hot topics is another one in here that we use, and the interesting thing with this is if you think of kind of where people might come in on high and low ends, they'll be like kind of grouped in 2 groups. So you'll see group A here. There were 16 at a 4.7 rating, so they want to help us have fun and learn at the same time. It's important. They're referring to teachers. I would imagine this is mostly students that did this. On the other end, group B rated that pretty low. So it's going to show some clustering of data. So we want to look at both of those extremes as well. And why might there be a gap? And if there's a gap in there, we need to analyze that further as to what, is it a communication thing? What does it happen to be? The common thoughts is a good tool too, because then we can say, where do both of these groups agree? And so that will give us a chance to, again, go in and find that common ground, which will likely be where we set our strategic action plan from the beginning to be able to drive the change in those 4 focus areas. So what I wanted really you guys to see with this is that it's a powerful tool that will allow us to really drill down into data, and it's taking the voice of our community. I mean, this information is coming straight from them. It's not us generating the questions or us interpreting responses. It's going to be our community that's providing that directly to us. And so with that, I'm going to move over to the podium. Do you have any questions over this tool before I kind of went through that pretty quick? Okay.
Well, just make it all make sense to us.
It's a lot of information.
Yeah.
That parents.
Right?
So as I was saying, the next step of this process is going to be that we will put this data in front of the focus areas for the strategic action planning, which I sent you guys emails about interest in participating in one of those 4 focus areas. If you have the time and interest to do so, please let me know. On November 27th, we will meet, and there will be 4 areas, as I mentioned: financial, academic, climate, and employee. The task at that meeting will be able to, we'll sit down and talk about our mission, vision, values for the district, and then we'll go through the development and training of SMART goals, how to generate SMART goals. The task will be is that each one of those areas is going to generate 2 SMART goals, And then within each goal will be action steps. Now, this data will be one set of data that we'll use to drive kind of the development of those goals and, more importantly, those action steps. There might be areas where we need to pull additional data. For example, an employee. I know Ramona has quite a bit of data that she's been collecting. That will need to be brought into that group to look at. So we'll spend the time really saying, what data do we have? What data do we need to get? And then we'll need to go find that to help generate our baseline. That's what's going to be most important. So once we get these actionable steps, we're going to put in their timelines. We're going to put in benchmark as far as where we are now, but what is our estimated growth, measures at certain sectors in time. We'll measure that, and then we'll come back and readjust that strategic plan accordingly. And so this data is going to be important. As I said before, it starts the conversation. We do want, I tell people this, I said, data is not personal, it's how we use it. It should be personal. It's what we're going to do with this. There's a lot of stuff in there that we should be proud of, and there's stuff in there that we don't want to shy away from, that we want to say, if the community's talking about it, we would rather they're talking to us about it than talk about, outside in the community without us involved in that conversation. And so I found the data to be extremely enlightening, particularly being new to the district. I didn't see anything in there that, in my first blush, that isn't typically, I wouldn't say atypical of communities across the country. I do believe what is unique in our data is how do we build the cultures to embrace the diversity in our community, not only amongst our students, but also our staff and our community at large. And there's quite a bit of data in there. A lot of data in there about students talking about culture and climate and how do we make it inclusive, as I said, for all students, but also address not only the physical, but the emotional and social safety of our students. We've been talking about that, I know, since I've been in Dodge City, and it will continue to be part of our KISA goals, part of our focus in our buildings. But this gives us a good connection to say what our students are telling us works or what's not working. So I'm very excited about the data. Any questions that you guys might have about this or the next steps? Carrie, did I leave anything out? Oh, I know one thing, because this is a kudo. It didn't pop up on the demographics. So we had a significant percentage of our business community, so our community at large that doesn't have any direct association to our school districts, participated in about 23, 24% of our respondents were from the community, which really, if you think about it, in a non-bond election questionnaire, that's a pretty good percentage. So I would say, to me, it could say a couple things. It says, one, our community is definitely invested in the school district. And I think that's obvious. Two, I think it also has to do with what Carrie and her department did to put the message out there. Mm-hmm. So a lot of this was really kind of new territory for us to really engage our community. What's going to be vital is that in this coming few days, in this next week, that we get this data in front of all of our staff, but also in front of our community, so that they see a result in their words, that this is what you said, we're listening to you, and here's our next step. Mm-hmm. So I think that's going to be vital, and we'll work on that this week.
Very good.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Okay, while she's pulling the next item up, it's the District Leadership Team Handbook. And if you could, coming? In the agenda. Okay, on page 70 of your agenda, I don't know if you got the agenda in there. Do you see a flow chart that looks like this? What you have in front of you is the culmination of discussions and directive from Dr. Dirksen. I think the audit also provided some pretty specific detail as far as suggestions for the district to come up with processes for not only the alignment of our curriculum, but then also that will lead to the adoption of materials. In your packet, I want to go over that flow chart that you have. And this is also a combination of meetings with the MTSS support group from KSDE. So when we look at this, I think it's important because there's a lot of stuff that's going on, and I think it's important to see how it all fits. So in this flow chart, and really it looks linear, and I think there's always a downside to having a flow chart that looks like there's an apex where you see where it's the community. Ultimately, the community is who we're all responsible to. And then if you look at the flow, it's bidirectional. So the Board of Education reports to and represents the desires and wishes of the community. Then there's the superintendent's cabinet, and then below that is the district leadership team, which is what's represented in this handbook that I provided to you. So the role of the district leadership team is to oversee the FACE, or the strategic action plan of the school district, as well as overview and alignment of our professional development that will be outcomes-based, based on driving student outcomes, curriculum and instruction, and along with that will come material adoption, assessments, compliance measures and mechanisms, such as, for example, KISA is an accreditation compliance mechanism from the state, and then protocols and records. So this team will have a very vital role to advise and consent. Ultimately, it will report, their findings will be reported to the deputy superintendent, who then brings it to the superintendent and the board for final review. So how does this align? So the district leadership team is that vector point between the building and the staff to the district level cabinet. So if you look below the district leadership team, you see admin council. I've said this to our principals, and I'll say it over and over again. For impactful change, that means that impacts our students in a positive manner, whether it's academics or behavior, social or emotional, has got to begin with strong connection with our building administrators. They're really literally at that fulcrum between driving initiatives district-wide and what we do to help support them, but then they're tied in with not only their students, but their staff and what's needed at the building to align with the student goals. So you'll see the academic counselor the academic council, which is made up of our administrators, is a huge piece in getting the information two ways, from the buildings to the district office and the district office back to the buildings. So what does that look like in a building? Well, the building leadership team, which is BLT. So that would be the representative body in each one of our buildings that will process pretty much the similar topics that you see in the district leadership team, but it's done at a building level. And then the professional learning communities, or PLCs, and SIT teams, which it looks at student behavior for emotional and behavioral support. And the PLCs are structures for collaborative time. So all these things fit into a flow. On the right-hand side, you see work groups. These are going to be task-specific and time-limited groups. So one of the first things that this district leadership team is going to do is it's going to appoint, at my recommendation, that we appoint an English language arts cadre. And their task will be to start the process of aligning our pre-K-12 English language arts standards, map them by grade level, go through that, and then once that's done, then be able to look at materials and research, what's out there that's research-based and evidence-based, and then develop the structure. Oh, there we go. Okay. You could see the work groups there at the bottom right. These work groups could be things as specific as KISA, Linc, which we already have work groups there, social emotional, curriculum review, and material adoptions. Again, these are going to be more time-sensitive pieces. It looks like a lot. It looks like a lot of moving pieces. This, I hope, shows how everything fits together and how it flows. And it's a bi-directional flow. What we tell our teachers right now, really the only thing that's new or pseudo-new would be the district leadership team, although we have those in different forms or function. We already are doing professional learning communities across the district, and when I asked the principals to provide kind of an audit of what they're doing, there are pieces in place, but there's a wide variance as to how they're doing it. Tiered intervention of support, or MTSS, same thing. Each building is using data at some point to drive their instruction, but it varies across even terminology or practices. So what we're doing is saying, we're doing these things in the district, we just are going to do them with more fidelity, and we're going to do them with congruence across all buildings within the district.
And Dr. Springston, if I might chime in here, the complication of understanding all this is that the MTSS process, which is being supported through the State Department, wanted to see what we had. And in fact, they were requiring that we have this. And when we had our meeting, which is a credit to every administrator that is here, we were able to verbalize to them and conceptualize for them what we did have. We only added one piece to that whole chart in their presence, which even they admitted is very rare for school districts that they work with, and retrospectively was very impressive on our part as a district that we are where we're at. We just need to put it on paper and follow it in the descriptions that we have. So I was impressed with that, because they came here expecting to make us outline our order of how we do our different organizations and groups, and we already had it. So it's a credit to us.
We do, and I will say one of the tests that the administration performed was an audit. So what we call an implementation audit. So what's going on in your building that's either curriculum related or assessment, just initiatives. We had 182 items listed across all of our schools. And that was an honest assessment. Maybe, I mean, we could be missing some here or there, but and again, 182 is quite a bit. I don't know what the actual number should be, but what it should be is stuff that we can actually leverage with efficiency. In other words, are we doing some things that are maybe one-offs or done in small pockets that we can align to either some research-based backing or evidence-based backing? And if that's the case, when we go through this work and start really digging into what we're doing, some of those things are going to have to go. Because what we hear, and I'm sure you guys have too from our teachers, they are doing the best job they can every day. We need to make it easier for them to do it with clarity in where we're going and the support behind them to make that happen, to be able to support our administrators to do that work in the buildings. And so that's really our task. Right now, it's getting everything organized and getting our teachers to understand that MTSS is not a program, it's a framework. PLCs are how you're going to professionally collaborate with your peers. So it's not a separate program. We're doing it, we just need to make sure we're doing it consistently across all of our buildings. So what this handbook does, and what I'm asking the board for approval, is it's the best draft we have right now. I'm going to have the DLT vet it. My intention upon approval from the board tonight is that I will work on getting the members selected and host our first meeting before holiday break, with the understanding the first meeting after break will be to get into the ELA review and adoption development.
Very good. Important step.
A lot of work. A lot of work.
This is an action item.
I'll make a motion to adopt the draft 2018-2019 District Leadership Team Handbook.
I'll second that.
Motion by Tracy and a second by Jeff. All in favor? 6-0.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
One more item I have is the online learning platform. So what I have in front of you is a bid proposal for Frontline. And what Frontline is it's an online professional development platform that will allow us to utilize videos as individual or small group or whole group professional development modalities. One of our challenges in public education, most of you up there on the board are outside of public education, and so you understand that your professional development largely is going to be you working on your CEUs or you figuring out that ongoing PD on a regular basis. But in public education, it's very important that our staff is trained and has an ongoing training basis. But being a very labor-intensive industry, sometimes it's kind of hard, just like a teacher in a classroom, really to differentiate to the levels that you need to or the pacing that you need to for teachers. Some are ready to go faster and some need to go a little bit slower because at the end, it isn't the completion, it's going to be how they're applying it within the classroom because it's got to move the student needle. So when we talk about PD in terms, most of the time with schools, we're talking about completion and seat time. What we want to start doing is changing that conversation that learning does not stop. It's a constant application. And how is it impacting what's going on in the classroom? So part of the Linc Grant, and if I'm not doing it justice, I'm going to ask Tammy because she's the expert author in the Linc Grant proposal. But within the Linc Grant, in our comprehensive literacy guide, which was the framework to develop that 3-year grant, over $3 million from the state, it was embedded in there that we would be looking for ways in which we could expand our PD offerings to a video modular. So in other words, it could be an individual teacher that could go in and look at very specific content-related video tutorials that either we assigned, and we could group it as the administrators in the back end and say, here are the videos that we would like you to look at, so it wouldn't just be totally open. So it either could be individual or it could be small group, it could be large group. It allows us the opportunity to have coaches to be able to expand their reach, because right now what coaches do in their cycles is largely with an individual teacher. Now, if they can maybe get a small group of teachers, and then set up training and do video chats offsite or at different times, or whatever works for that individual teacher. It could be during their plan period where there's a group chat. Any of you have used Blackboard or some of those other LMS platforms, it would be kind of a similar thing. So it wouldn't take the place of traditional PD, but it would augment it and make it more personalized. So this learning platform interfaces with my learning plan. So we're able to not only tie it into our state certification points that our teachers have to have, but we can also track specific goals related to Linc as well. So when we put in PD that's related to the 3 goals, we're able to track how many of our teachers took it, what they took or participated in, and then even track it further into impact points. The platform changes the way that we're looking at PD. It's adding to what we're already doing. So it's going to be really, it's going to provide professional development learning anytime, anywhere. Somebody can access these video tutorials. As you can see in the documentation, there were 4 companies that we explored and looked at. The Frontline came out top. Torch was a company that we looked at and talked to. It was a very good company, but it didn't interface with My Learning Plan, which is the platform we use right now to develop our professional development points. Frontline did. The other thing, if you look at cost with Torch, is they had a smaller upfront base fee, but then it was only for 160 users. So when you start adding on, we have way more than 160 users. That fee would go quite a bit higher than Frontline. That bid, as you see, is year 1 is approximately $36,000, but that's for a calendar year. They would prorate that because we don't have a full year remaining on what this would be this contract. It is money that was funded as part of the grant. It was built into the grant originally, so the money is there for 3 years to do this. If we choose not to, let's say you approve Frontline, we hire Frontline, any videos, because the videos come from a library that will be provided that are research-based, but then we're able to download our own videos and create those. At some point, if we were to leave with Frontline, we'll keep all those videos. So we'll continue to build up our video library here in Dodge City. So do you have any questions for this? I'm recommending that the board does approve the Frontline proposal as presented for our online professional development platform.
So do you anticipate that if we were to stay on past year 2, that it would be at that $26,000 mark?
Mm-hmm. I'd be surprised if they go down. I would
Yeah.
think they're probably going to have some kind of percentage escalator. They did not provide that. It is something that I don't want to predict. I mean, if it's being used and those videos have direct result, then I'll update the board and I'll come back to you and say it's money well spent. If it's not, then either we need to do one of 2 things. Why is it not being used? And if it is and it's not productive, then we need to do something else. So we'll constantly monitor it. My goal and hope would be we'd be able to get in tape with their permission, make videos and tutorials using our staff in the district to do those short videos and create our own video library that people can go in and access. So we're going to definitely add that to our library as we go.
I have 2 questions. One, can this be used with paras and subs, or is it just certified teachers?
Yeah, Tammy's shaking her head. Yes, it can.
Yeah.
And does it count towards professional development hours for this?
Mm-hmm. Yes,
Okay.
it does.
Awesome.
It is. And it is a requirement of the grant, and as Scott said, we'll constantly monitor it, but I look for it to be a great help. And our goal, I want to reiterate this, but our goal with Linc Grant is that we're getting substantial funding for 3 years, but if it gets us started on the process of improving literacy, we don't want to stop that train.
Mm-hmm.
we want to keep building on that. And I mean, that's what this district needs. So we're hoping that we're on the right steps.
Yeah, and we put 3 years worth of funding into the grant, with the idea is we do want to build our own video library, but knowing that to start with, it's going to take us some time to get something built in and to have some sustainability with it. And so this is going to offer some already videos that we can go in and select, this is the standard or this is the focus and these are the things that come with it. So we can start using it right away and as we build our library. And so at the end of the grant time, then we can just reevaluate, okay, is this worth is this working for us? Is this something that we want to reinvest in as a district? If so, then we'll look at that way. If not, we'll look at our library and feel like we've had time now to build up and have enough stuff that we won't need to use this piece anymore. We won't know that until we've started it, but we did put 3 years worth of funding into something like this into the grant. So
Kind of related to this, I mentioned the coaches, and I think that's the thing is I've been working with the coaches. We had last Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we brought in a representative with the Instructional Coaching Group. It's based out of a professor at KU who's been doing research on effective instructional coaches. So that's a teacher who goes in and helps work with other teachers on their instructional practice and pedagogy. One of the leading experts in the field. So we brought his group in here, there were 22 coaches and administrators from Garden City that attended. We also had 5 from the service center that, and everybody there was participating in the Linc Grant in one form or fashion. It was a great opportunity. I can tell you what I saw with all of our coaches, including we invited Kara Huck from the high school in Makerspace, and also 613. We invited the instructional coach there to attend. I could sit back and watch and see our coaches start to come together and get the model, the instructional coaching model. Maybe it's not as finite yet as they will make it, but I could see them come together. I had one of the coaches come up to me after it and said, you know what, she's on evaluation cycle this year in her normal rotation. She goes, I really want to change my professional goals because of what I'm learning here. I said, do it. So I want to commend the board for approving and supporting that, but really say that our instructional coaches are going to be vital in not only the link, but also how we're assisting our teachers. But they can't do it by themselves. We have to be able to build up our teaching staff as a whole to help co-support their colleagues across the district. And I believe that this proposal will be one of multiple steps to do that.
I really appreciate the emphasis on the professional development. Obviously, that's key. When is a realistic time frame for us to get some measurable data results on our focus on literacy? I mean, what's a reasonable time frame to where I don't have a clue.
Well, we're right now collecting baseline data. And so, I mean, that's reasonable, but it won't show the growth. And
Right.
so I would say preliminary, I think it would be by the end of first semester, we should have some data that we can come in and say, here's our targeted actions, whether it be community involvement or it's moving the needle in reading and writing. So much of our work right now this first semester is really getting everything that's kind of that big peripheral kind of independent practice piece we've talked about, getting everybody together on what the goals are.
Right.
So to answer your question, we will, I believe this spring, start to be able to bring back some very early data.
Okay.
And then give you a timeline on, because we have an evaluation plan that we submit to the state. And so we're still finalizing that with them as we speak. This first semester is really in the state what the grant said is your planning implementation semester. Tammy, did you have anything?
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's reasonable because right now it's just, it's kind of, we're just tilling the ground right now, getting it
Right.
ready to plant kind of concept. So it's going to take a little bit, but I do think we'll start to see some impact. We've already started some specific work on our designated goal areas with our cohort 1 groups. And so we've started some professional development with cycles following up to tweak and focus on some instructional strategies. And we would anticipate to see some growth from that, but I do think it'll take a little bit of time.
Sure, and I just had no clue what was a reasonable amount of time. So, but I'm anxious, to begin to see the
Yeah.
results of what we're doing.
Well, I do know the And talking to Ray, and he could probably add to this too, the amount of teachers and administrators that are requesting data out of FileMaker, whether it be looking at the interim assessments, which are aligned to kind of give predictive results on how our students might do at the end of the year state assessments, you're starting to see quite a bit of an increase, which is good because we're talking about it. We're saying data really does need to drive our decision making. So once our organization starts to embrace and look at data, and then make decisions based on it, you'll see a tick that goes up. I mean, I'm confident that will happen. As all these processes come in clarity, and we can get rid of some of those 182 things that are taken away from our teacher and principal's valuable time, we'll start to see it go for more. So I wish I could give you a timeline, but it's moving.
And I know you're dealing with human beings and children, and so it's takes time.
Who are also human beings.
Pardon?
Who are also human beings.
They're special human beings. Very special. Smaller human beings. Yeah, that's good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And this is also an action item.
Yes, it is.
I'll make a motion to approve the one-year subscription with Frontline in the amount of $35,875.
I'll second it.
Motion by Tracy and a second by Jamie. All in favor? 6-0. Oops, excuse me. Okay, next up, public information.
Good evening. I have very little to report tonight, but I do want to give you a brief update on American Education Week. We held that last Thursday, and just super kudos to Karen Blankman and Regina Bosley. They were superstars in pulling together that event. We also reached out to our community, and they were so generous in providing gifts. We had tremendous outpouring of gifts and cash donations. So we gave away 148 gifts at our event Thursday night. So we had a very good time with that. Overall, we served 570 people, 270 staff, and their families came out for a fun event. Another piece that's just really fun to share, the governor's tree this year, they've asked for ornaments from students, and I've had 2 classes that have donated an ornament, and so we are sending those to the governor's office this week, and they will be there on display. And then Emily O'Brien, their 3rd grade class, and then also Sherry Hutchcraft, her 3rd grade class. They donated ornaments for us. That's awesome. A quick update. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carrie. And business services.
Good evening. Let me go back to make sure. I was the end to the beginning. This evening, let us start off with some good news. With the construction manager risk process, there is a thing where that if, while we approve a price not to exceed, if they don't spend all the money, we do get it back. And so the first 2 change orders tonight are basically money that we had approved to be spending, but they succeeded in doing the project without spending it all. So the first change order is number 13 for Miller Elementary, and basically this is a change order that would move $59,516.59 back to the owner's reserve account. So we'd seek that approval tonight of the board.
What are the plans to do with this windfall of money?
Well, we actually have 2 things, and you bring up a good question. We do have a change order at Central Elementary that's going to cost us some this evening. Those items at Central were basically because we were redoing an old building. There were some things that we came across that we felt like we needed to fix. There's also some dollars left in the overall project that we anticipate bringing in to the board either at the next meeting this month or the first meeting in December. There are things that we wanted to do with the project, but until the project was finished, we didn't want to go over budget. I think we've made a commitment to the board. We were going to complete everything that the voters asked us to do, which we've done, but we were also going to keep it under budget, which we've done. So there will be some more dollars that we'll recommend spending. Again, that'll probably be in December. One of the things on that list, for example, is exterior lighting. We have some kind of dark holes of Calcutta around our schools. We think that's a safety issue. But again, we just didn't want to start more projects outside the original project till we knew we had the dollars. So.
Okay, so I'll make a motion for approval of the change order.
I'll second that one.
All right. Motion by Tammy and a second by Jeff. All in favor?
The second one is change order number 6 for Sunnyside Elementary. Again, we were able to complete that project, and there'll be about $40,000 that will be returned to the owner's reserve account from that situation.
I'll make a motion to approve it.
Okay.
Second?
Motion by Jamie and a second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0.
Okay. The third item is we're going to spend some money. Central Elementary, as we got into that project, there were a given number of areas. We were dealing with the older building. We understood that. We wanted it to look as good as we could when we were done. The main item on this is each of our buildings, there are a given number of things that we, what's the word I'm looking for? We can't store in the building. For example, lawnmowers, snow blowers, gasoline. We also, from time to time, have needs to store furniture on a temporary basis and so forth. This is very similar to what we did at Miller Elementary, and we will be building a building kind of as you come in from the side at the south end of the property, basically a storage building. And the total of those, and this should complete Miller, it's $118,982. And we do have the money in the owner's reserve account to do that.
The storage building is going to be
Yes.
$100,000?
No, that is $36,618.
Okay.
And it's basically, it's a 24 by 24, and we found that's a pretty good size. It just accommodates everything we need that we don't necessarily need in the building. And from time to time, we do need to store things out of the building. And if you want to see one very similar, it's basically the same size. We built one at Miller Elementary this year when we finished that project.
So it is 118 for the storage building or not? Or
No, it's $36,618.
The 118,000 is outlined on page 109.
Yeah.
It has all the different items that are
Yeah.
being included in the extra work that needs to be done.
For example, when we started, if you're familiar with Central Elementary, when we started taking the doors out and putting the office area where the gym used to be, there was some duct work and mechanical work we were not aware of in the walls. We had to reroute some of that. There's a cost for this, things that we did. And as opposed to bringing each one of those items to the board individually, we basically, the project's pretty well done. We just brought them all together.
Bill, we've got a $40,000 speech room credit. What's that?
At one time, we were going to put a speech room basically on the, if I can get my directions right, on the north side of the office area. And we came up to a problem where we just didn't have the time to get it done by the open house, so we didn't do that. And so we'd approved it, but we just determined we could not complete it in a timely manner. We can go back and do that later, but at this time, we didn't want a half-finished building as we opened the building this fall. So that was the reason we didn't complete that. The other issue is it could have an issue of, it kind of covered up some of the, I'm going to call it architectural features of that building, so you may want to look at that again. At this point, that will not be needed until there is a full 4-section school at Central, which looks like it's going to be down the road a little while before we completely fill that school.
I make a motion, we approve the change order at Central.
A second.
Motion by Jeff and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0.
Yeah. I might mention, because you did raise the question, there are a number of items that we wanted to do as we were doing the project. We just didn't feel like we could commit. It wasn't part of the commitment to the voters. We have met, I think, all the commitments to the voters. Like I say, exterior lighting is one. We have some more energy controls and things that we've talked about with the board previously. We will bring that list, and you can either approve it or not. That's going to be up to you as a board member, but we're trying to make sure it stays within what we consider to the directions of the bond, which was safety. We also did energy management, as you're aware, with the ice storage and so forth. So it's areas that we think that you're going to be happy to see, but again, that will be your decision as a board at some point in the future. We did have an engineer out last week looking at exterior lighting and trying to really determine where we need to go with that. I think, for example, at the high school, Jackie, we changed the parking lot lights to LED. I think that's been a very appreciated change, but there's other areas of the high school that need some additional lighting, I think. So we're just we looked literally at every building in the district, and that's what we're going to come back with. So it can all be up to the board. You all get to make those decisions.
Have you gotten any idea when they're going to get this central construction as far as like in front of the school? Is that, I know it's not breakneck speed right now, but
Now, are you talking about the street from the city or from our construction?
from the city.
There was discussions of that it was going to be next year in the summer at one point. Now, whether that's still on track or not, I don't want to speak for the city, but I'll be happy to contact the city and ask if they have an updated schedule, because we looked at that as it might affect construction, but they were starting at the other end, so it wasn't going to affect our construction. One of the concerns that we had on that issue was we did not include in the parking, or in our project, replacing the sidewalk along Central, because that's part of the city's project. And we thought it did make a lot of sense to put a sidewalk in where it used to be, so they could come in and tear it out and replace it. And that was, we were hoping they were gonna be there a little sooner, to be very candid, but they're not. So I'll be happy to ask the city.
I meet with the business leaders once a month, and we have had that discussion before, and because of traffic and what have you, they didn't want to be in front of Central until the summer, but I'll make sure the schedule is still on target and give you an answer, possibly in the weekend review, so, as soon as I find out.
Sounds good.
Okay. The next item is they were moving chemicals, and Ms. Foster, you can correct me if I'm incorrect on this, but as they discovered we had some chemicals at the high school that were no longer necessary for the teaching of various science classes, and it was felt that the disposal of those chemicals was in the best interest of the district. There is a state bid, and so basically we are going with the state bid to have those chemicals removed and disposed of. And that is the item on page 111. And really, the price is pretty reasonable compared to what I've seen in some other points. Anytime you deal with chemicals and hazardous waste, obviously, it's never cheap. So, but that's the reason.
I took this back to our lab and asked, because we dispose of chemicals all the time, and they did say the price was about as reasonable as it could be done. But two of the chemists look at me and ask me, what in the world, if they didn't say world?
Yes, I understand what they probably said.
Acetate at the high school.
We actually brought most of that from the old high school, and they've never been touched.
Okay. But they
I think
said,
I'm glad to hear that they've never been touched.
yeah.
When we did the move last year, when we started boxing up stuff, then we found a couple of boxes that had been stored appropriately, but had never been used, and nobody was interested in using more than any of that stuff ever used. It probably, most of it hasn't been used in the last 35 to 40 years from what we tracked.
Well, it still begs the question, what in the heck were they doing?
That's why I don't want it in my building anymore.
Exactly. I don't want it in your building either.
Yeah,
so.
me neither.
You said it was stored correctly. Does that mean it was locked, or was it just?
It was there were appropriate chemical storages depending on what the chemicals
Okay,
are.
all right.
And they were stored appropriately legally, because they met every,
Okay.
I mean.
Every
they
check.
get inspected several times a year, they show up and make sure, and they have no question as to why we have it as long as it's stored appropriately.
Well, one of the guys, he speculated that they used it before it was a regulated material.
That's my point, yes.
Yeah, so.
It's been a long time.
So anyway, but that was, well, we had fun with that anyway, thank you, so.
You had fun, you should have saw my eyes when I saw that, and told me what it was.
Okay, would someone like
I
to?
make a motion for approval for disposal of the lab
Okay.
chemicals.
I'll second it.
All right, motion by Tammy, second by Pamela. All in favor? 6-0.
Oh, the next item on the thing is, if we can ever get this house tore down for a reasonable amount of money, it's gonna be a miracle. We went out for bids once, didn't get any bids. We went out the second time, we got one bid. We think this is probably at least twice what it should cost to tear down this house. And our hope is maybe with some construction people coming in for the administration building or other things, if we put the outside out again, we'll get a more competitive bid. So we would recommend that the board reject the bid for demolition of the house at 110 West Mulberry Street.
Bill, how much have we paid for other demolitions?
Significantly less. I can go back and I'll do it, but I think there were some that were 10, 15, maybe 20,000 is what I'm remembering, and that's just off the top of my head.
Do you have any reason why those people did not bid this?
Depends what they've got going on, what their equipment's used for. Is it in town, out of town? I'd like to have a better answer than that. I don't at this point. We can sure go back and we can go through people who bid for others, and we can ask them, what would it take to get you to bid on this property? We can sure do that if you'd like us to. We really thought we'd have more bids than one, to be honest.
I think maybe we need to look at something because we've got this property that we're not doing anything with, and it's holding up the parking lot and what we want to do on that location. So I think we do need to look at.
I asked Bill what kind of requirements there were in Dodge City that we might not hire our own little bulldozer and truck operation, and between Steiner and I, we'd get it moved off.
Is it something the shop
We've done it
class at
before.
the high school could
Building
do?
trades,
Yeah,
would they be?
Building trades that they could do.
Tear it down.
Construct a house and stuff.
Oh, I'm sure it's got a little asbestos in it.
I'll make you deal with your own uranium.
Sounds like you better get to work on that, Bill.
Good point. Good point.
I'll make a motion to reject the build for A&M Russell Excavating for the demolishment of 110 West.
I'll second that.
Motion by Tracy and a second by Jeff. All in favor?
Getting money back.
6-0.
Rejecting bids.
The next item is the nutrition food service building. In a minute, you're going to get an opportunity to reject another bid because it came in substantially more than we were expecting. So we did have our own people actually finish up the food service building. We think at a much lesser cost. But we want you to know that it's going. We anticipate that we will be occupying the food service part of that this year, hopefully moving in over Christmas. And then we will finish the rest of the building inside a little later on, hopefully by the 1st of March. So that's kind of the tentative on that. I hope the board will be willing to take a tour of that after the first of the year. Kathy went down to see it from nutrition, and I think she's very excited about it, and it's going to really serve the district a long time. But we just wanted to kind of give some information on that. It is moving along, and as I said, we did get a bid in to do some of the work, and it came in at $232,000, which was at least twice what we were anticipating. So basically, we bought the materials, and our guys did the work, and it's pretty well done. So we would ask you on item page 120 to reject the food service bid that was given on that particular item. So
When did that bid go out?
it went out a long time ago, and to be blunt, it got on the back of my stack on my desk. Otherwise, you would have had to reject about 3 meetings ago. And I do apologize for that, but that's just, as you noticed, I had a number of items that came to the board, and I made a mistake. I just didn't get it here as soon as I should have.
So all that work we've done in-house?
Yes, we've done the work in-house. It's substantially less money.
I was going to
yes.
say, did it come anywhere close to that?
No. We probably didn't spend $30,000 or $40,000 for the supplies and everything. But we provided the labor. We made some modifications to it. We did do some value engineering to the project. So, and it's going to work.
And I'd like to make motion, we've made motions to get money back and reject bids. It's a totally different kind of board meeting. I make the motion to reject another bid on the food services
On the
facility.
next line.
Oh, okay.
So I have a motion by Jeff,
I'll second.
second by Jamie. All in favor? 6-0.
The next thing is we did receive 9 things for the RFQ that we put out for architectural services. We took either 7 or 8 firms through the facility. We didn't require that, but we did go through the facility with at least 7 or 8 different firms, and I'm a little fuzzy on that because we had some non-architectural firms that were engineering firms that also went through with us. So everybody wasn't necessarily an architect. But I got to go to the press box multiple times, and there's a lot of steps, Jeff, to the press box. I just want to mention that. But anyway, we're kind of at a point, really 2 questions that are before us this evening. Does the board wish to interview all 9 candidates or narrow it down to a short list interview? Does the board wish to conduct the interviews themselves or form a committee to conduct the interviews? And what criteria does the board want to use when selecting an architect? So you've kind of given us direction on this, and I'm just asking for some direction on where you want us to go from here.
I've asked Jeff and Jamie to join me on a subcommittee And we'll meet hopefully either this week or next week with Dr. Dirksen and Clayton Curbs to narrow down to an interviewable size, probably 3 or 4 proposals that then I'd like the whole board to interview together as a group.
The finalists that you pick.
Okay.
Very doable. And then talking to Clayton, and he's going to help us with that. We just have to have some kind of a prescribed tool that we use to be fair to every firm that sent in their bid on how we make that selection for that criteria. And it's really up to us, and he's going to help us with that.
Great.
Okay.
Good idea.
Do we need an action on that, or what do you think?
I think it'd be a good idea to approve the subcommittee appointed by the board president for the purposes of narrowing the architects down. And have we selected a date for that meeting yet? Or
We have not. We're
okay,
still
well,
working
you
on
can do
that.
by email, but I think taking action would be appropriate for that.
Make a motion to assign subcommittee between Lisa, Jeff, and
Jamie.
And Jamie.
I can remember. For the designation of,
Narrowing down the architects,
he said.
be interviewed by the whole board for final selection.
Okay, second.
All right, we have a motion by Tracy and a second by Tammy. All in favor? 6-0. Okay, very good. And we'll, maybe tonight before we leave, we'll nail down a date that'll work for us on that.
Sounds optimistic.
That's me.
Let's see. I think I have one other item that's been added. The sale of the building trades house at 10583 West Briarwood Drive. We thought that it was final offer this afternoon, and at 5:20 this evening, I got another phone call from our realtor, and it had changed. They wanted a little more money at the closing time, and as a result of that change, we actually are getting more money out of the property than we anticipated before 5:20 this evening. And I just want to give kudos to Karen because she had to update everything according to the new prices, which we really didn't get, I think, until about 5:39 or so. We actually got a copy of the new settlement sheet. So that is before you. This is very standard. When you do this, you always have to do a resolution because that's the requirement of the title companies normally. So you approve the resolution for sale, and I think all the information is before you on that. Are there any questions?
So the final contract offers $240,000. Correct.
No.
That's
That's what the sale price for the home.
gotcha.
Yeah.
You say we have to make a
We have to approve
The resolution. And I think it's there, staff recommendation, the board is respectfully requested to approve resolution 2018-1112A for the proposed sale of the building trades house located at 10582 West Briarwood Drive for the sum of $240,000. There's very much a prescription on this. The sale of real estate, there's a whole series of statutes that guide that. This makes us follow all those statutes, and so there's no question down the road. It's just,
I would make a motion to approve resolution 2018-1112A.
Second.
Motion by Jeff, second by Tracy. All in favor? 6-0.
okay.
Bill, I didn't see anything, or maybe I missed it, about the Northwest traffic study.
I'll be happy to address that if I may. The city responded late last Friday on the Northwest traffic study. We have not had time yet to deal with that administratively. I did put it in I think we can review, and I also gave copies today. What we were going to take as the next step is to meet with the 3 principals, the buildings affected by that, go over that with them. I did have a Skype with the engineer on that because I'll be honest, when I read the letter from the city, I wasn't completely sure what they were recommending. And he explained it to me, and after he explained it to me, I'm more confused why they particularly recommended that thing. But Again, there may be some good reasons, but we felt like we needed administrative input from building principals before we came up with an administrative recommendation. So we're hopefully,
This was in there, but not the actual letter.
oh, okay, there's supposed to be a letter like this. I apologize, that was supposed to also be in there.
Does that outline the
Here,
two?
I've got copies of it.
Yeah, hand that out, please.
And while you're doing that, Kim, would you mind, what are your thoughts on all this? If you could give some input.
Not much for the oversized cars that we have today. Traffic tends to back up. We do our best to monitor everyone. We have the supervisors out there, not allowing parents to park because that is a drop-off only. We still have traffic backed up, and there's not an ideal drop-off location right now.
In a perfect world, what would you see as the solution?
Last year, we had a pull-through lane that worked very well, even though it was close to the corner. We didn't have parent complaints or we were concerned about student safety as they just pulled through, dropped their students off, and moved on forward. So that worked while we were under construction last year. And it was actually a smaller area than what was proposed by the district that we used last year.
As long as your dad runs it. He's good. He was very good.
Okay.
And was that ever brought to the city? What she's talking about, was that particular drop-off?
That was the recommendation of the traffic study to the city, and
Was that option A or option B? Do you recall?
that was basically option A. Option B is there are some places where they do a dual drop-off. We were not as excited about that because with the dual drop-offs, which they do use in a number of cities and places, it means that your kids would have to walk through the other drop-off zone, and that we had some concerns about. Our recommendation, I think, was basically option A that was presented. The city basically said they didn't feel comfortable with that. So, but again, before we went back, I felt like we should meet as an administrative team and make a, really review everything and make sure we're not missing anything, and then.
And they did think they could get along with option C, which was moving it into the parking lot on the east side of
And it's-
Northwest, and we weren't ecstatic about that.
We weren't ecstatic about that. The other thing is their recommendation on option C is actually take part of the traffic through the Sewell parking lot, then up into traffic.
Well, one thing we had talked about on that buffer zone of the parking, when they pull in, we were going to widen the slots.
We talked about that too.
Did we reject that, or because I
It
thought we
wasn't-
were going to do that at one time.
It was basically, the recommendation was what Kim described as option A. Option B was the 2 drop-off zones, and then there was option C.
No, but I'm going back to the parking in
We
front
did
of
that.
school. We talked about widening
Yes,
the
we did.
lanes for when you pull in, so that students had a safer area and just had fewer parking spots. Am I
Yeah.
describing that correctly? And did
That
we
wasn't
not-
one of the options that came out of the study.
Right, but I thought we were going to do that before we ever asked for a study, because it wasn't ideal when we did that. It wasn't what we wanted, but I thought it was an option that, because, and today was terrible, because everything was slowed down, and it just made it that much harder, and some people didn't clean their back windows, and so we might have to visit that again. I mean, we've got to do something, because Ryan's not here to reiterate this, but it is one of the most common concerns that is brought to everyone's
Agree.
attention.
Mhm.
So,
And I can't think that backing out of an angle would be a good solution, even with wider spaces, because they're still backing out on Sewell, is that correct?
yes, that is correct. And they have that buffer lane,
That's difficult.
but right now,
That's
we only have one other option, and we weren't really happy with that option. Am I right on that? Option C.
Option C was basically losing our staff parking lot and turning that into a drive-through drop-off lane. So we
And the recommendation from the city is not just doing that, but it's also channeling traffic through Sewell, which is the Sewell parking lot. Again, I think we need to really sit down administratively and look
Okay.
at and
And so I'm just asking this because the parking lanes are not the city's, they're ours, is that correct?
I'm not going to make a comment on that because they're on a
Okay,
street,
I'm gonna
they're
take
probably
it-
on the right of way, so I would say they're
That
probably
might be,
the
I'm going to
city's.
take a chance and say they're ours, and if I find out they are, then we're going to try to widen those lanes until we can find a better solution, because we're going to have to get with the city and find out what options we do have besides that, because I don't think we can just keep doing it the way we're doing it.
I agree.
Is the city going to meet, when you meet with the principals, or it's you and the principals and the city?
What I think we're going to recommend is meeting with us, the principals and administration. We will probably ask the engineers to be a Skype on that so they can explain to us exactly what the city's recommending, what they seem to have agreed.
City engineers?
No, our engineers that did the traffic study. And then from that, I think we'll make a recommendation back to the city from that.
You couldn't invite the city to come.
I would tend to have our discussion first and then go to the city with a united decision is what I would recommend. We can do whatever the board directs, obviously.
It'd probably be helpful to have a parent group too, go to the city and put some pressure on them because it is a mess up there.
I'm not disagreeing. I mean, I'm just,
And there's no way to come up in to the front on Sixth Street any further.
The city is definitely worried about the control of traffic at that intersection between Sixth and Sewell.
But I mean, to drop off up at the Sixth Street entrance.
Yes. That was part of option A.
Yeah, A, yeah.
Then they have
we
to
thought it
run
would,
all the way
I'll be
around the
honest, I thought it
building.
was a no-brainer because the school said there wasn't really a problem during construction. It was less, we have more space now than we had in that period. We recommended, part of that recommendation was that there would be some diagonal spaces for pickup along Sixth Avenue so that if, people wanted to stop and wait for their kids, they could do that there. We thought it was we thought it was a pretty good, but again, you saw what the city came back with, so
Okay. We'll keep plugging away.
Yeah. When is that meeting, Bill?
I sent out a request today to basically the three principals, and we asked for either tomorrow or Thursday at their discretion. The engineers are available for a Skype whenever, so that was what we asked for today.
Okay.
And again, we just didn't get this thing till Friday, so we just haven't had time to try to put it together as soon as we do.
And is that the meeting you're going to be at, that you're not going to be able to be at the annual meeting for adult learning?
What?
Don't worry about it, we'll figure it out. I'm just
I
trying-
wasn't aware of the note. I think, as far as I knew, I wasn't missing any other meeting, anything else on my calendar tomorrow, or the next day, but if
Okay.
there's something else I need to be at, let me know.
Well, can't be two places, so I just want to make sure I know where I can be too, so.
Could Jamie attend that meeting as a parent/board member? I think that might be helpful.
We can have whoever you want at the meeting. I mean, that's a possibility. I just, it's whatever you all want, folks.
She drops off daily, if that would be helpful.
Don't ask me, I go on the bus stop. It's just too much, it's crazy. Somebody's gonna get hit and it's gonna be bad.
The principals, you might talk to them and see if they think that would be helpful.
That's where we were going back to, was the principals. That's what I've heard from the direction of the board, is you wanted involvement at the building level, so that's what we're trying to do.
Okay. Yeah, that's a different meeting, so no problem.
Okay.
Is that everything? Okay.
All right, thank you. Okay, we've got Board of Education member, district responsibilities, Park and Rec. Jamie?
I didn't make it this last month, but I'll be at the next, so.
Okay. Do we have Jay or Sean, do we have anything we need to be aware of on that?
They're doing a study at the zoo to see what the future of the zoo is going to be. They're looking at expansion at the water park, and Eisenhower Park's basically finished.
That expansion at the water park, is that including an indoor facility?
No, it is not.
Oh, it's worth a try.
You're not trying hard enough.
Okay, Bright Beginnings and Head Start. Ryan is not here. AC, is there anything that we need to?
No, not
for this meeting?
information, memorandum about father
Yes,
engagement.
yes, we've got
And I
that.
actually missed the last policy council that Ryan would have been at, so I think it would be best to wait to submit those minutes.
Okay. All right, special education, Mr. Hires?
Our meeting is next Tuesday. I usually report at the end of the month.
Okay. Legislative, Pamela?
Everything's over so far, so I think it's kind of a start again now.
I think it's going to ramp up now, so yeah, and we'll be sure and pay attention and try to attend some of the sessions because it's going to be very
Yeah.
interesting.
Yes, it will be.
Yeah. Capital outlay, we really don't,
No, I know in the week in review, they sent out information so the schools could put in their request.
right, very good. And calendar committee, there's been no. In Kansas Heritage Center, there's nothing new on that. Tammy, you're scheduled to review the bills prior to December's board meeting. November 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, Thanksgiving vacation, offices will be closed. November 26th, we'll have our noon meeting at Northwest. November 30th through December 2nd is the annual convention for KASB and delegate assembly this year in Overland Park. I believe as of right now, Ryan and Pamela have signed up to go. If you're interested in going, you need to let Deb know ASAP if it's not too late.
It might be too late. I don't know. She's not here to tell me, but.
Okay. If you are interested, contact her
Yeah,
tomorrow.
Because yeah, I do believe we've already given back a
Back the
room.
rooms.
Yeah, so I
Back.
think we did call it too late because
Okay.
the deadline was coming up.
Yeah, I think Ryan's going to serve as our delegate for that, so I think we're good on that end. December 10th will be our next evening board meeting here in the Austin boardroom. We will not have a second Board of Education meeting in December. December 20th will be the end of quarter workday, no classes. Offices closed 2 hours early for the holiday. And December 20th through January 4th will be Christmas break, with classes resuming on Monday, January 7th. Do we have items for future board meetings or additional information?
If you'd allow me to comment on two items here that we've been running through, I do want to point out that today, showing someone the Kansas Heritage Center, they actually started today packing books in the shelves, and the first face of the first shelf of books only took 20 boxes, but they got that done today, and I didn't count how many more shelves there were to go, but there's a lot going on, but that actually happened today. And just a proud moment here for me, but our next meeting is at Northwest, which is where it all started for me when I signed my contract. So I've made the full cycle now on all the visits of all the schools. So
Very good.
that was neat.
Very good. Okay.
All those boxes.
Yeah, not us. Executive session, we need it for discussion of personnel matters and the preliminary discussions about acquisition of real property. Who do we need?
So we'll divide that in two parts because we need Bill there for the acquisition of real property. So we'll start with that one.
Okay.
How long do you think that'll take, Bill? 5 minutes?
5 to 10.
5, 10? Better go with 7.
Okay, so we need,
And then we'll have a second.
I make a motion for executive session for 7 minutes for acquisition of property.
okay, we have a motion by Tammy and a second by Jamie. All in favor? 6-0. Thank you, everybody. Drive safe.